Thank you, everyone. And yep, welcome, John. I really like your mantra of safety first and keeping your helmet on while taking a profile pictures. That's absolutely, nice and good to see. Maybe it has something to do with what Rapha does, that you are wearing a helmet.
Yep.
So let's talk first about who is Rapha and what is actually done at Rapha.
Yeah, so Rapha, we make high-quality cycling clothing. Basically, one of our mantras is trying to get the world to live by bike. And we do that because, well, we want to equip people with the best clothing that we can. And that's basically what we do.
Mm-hmm. So you are supporting people on their cycling journey.
Yeah.
Does everyone who comes to interview for Rapha have to pass some tests, like a driving license on a bicycle?
No. We're not that strict. I think it used to be the case where it was like that, but I think it kind of breeds a very competitive environment. So it's not really like that anymore. It's all about how good people are at their job, really. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do some things around getting people started. We try to get people onto bikes. We have a lot of events in the office where the whole company shuts down and we all ride together. That's a really nice thing that we do. And if you don't ride a bike, you're still involved in that kind of thing.
Yeah, and this picture was created when John was riding around like 100 miles, and after that you can see still smile on his face, which I would like to highlight here. So
apparently it's a smile.
Except for being very good engineer, because we will talk about that as well, he is also quite a good on a bicycle. So thanks for the introduction, and hopefully we have more people who fancy cycling in this room. But what we are going to talk about today mainly is basically where Rapha was and how was your online presence in the past. So if you could get us through the stage where you have been before.
Yeah, so we were basically on a Monolith. It was impossible to do anything on it. Everything was tightly coupled, front end and back end tightly coupled. We had a lot of point-to-point integrations with all of the third parties that we had. So changing one thing kind of had a snowball effect and could break absolutely anything for us. Yeah, we made the choice 2 years ago to go composable, go headless first. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we've been on that journey ever since, really.
Mm-hmm. And when you made this decision, what were the expectations from it? Why did you make this decision?
I think really it's all about how we serve our customers. We knew that the website wasn't good enough. It's still, we're still on that journey. There's still lots of things for us to do. But we know we can make massive improvements, and we'll talk about them in a bit. But the things that we have migrated, they're just head and shoulders above what we had before. And really, it's setting us up for kind of doing the kind of experiences that we want to do in the future that we just couldn't do with that Monolith.
Mm-hmm. All right, so with regards to the online presence, you probably had also some sort of analysis, like fast-loading media, fast-loading website could lead to more revenue. So have you done any analysis before this decision was made?
Yeah, we did a very in-depth proof of concept with you guys. And we've done that across the board for all the different types of services that we've got. But for DAM in particular, we went to lots of competitors. We did a lot of analysis, and we knew that we could save up to anywhere between 70 and 90% on page speed and content sizes. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about the proof of concept, which I did in more details because randomly, but I was the solutions engineer who worked with John and his team, and they were making this decision, and they did really hard tests on us. So thanks for that. It really kept us on alert in many cases. So with regards to the new approach, when you decided to go with the updated tech stack, so what were the decisions made and why they have been made?
Well, most of it was, the first decision was we want to go composable. Mm-hmm. We want to use the best in class of everything that we can. So Cloudinary-is in there. Commerce Layer is another company that we believe is best in class for e-commerce. AWS was just a natural choice for us after doing the same kind of rigorous tests with Google and Azure. And Contentful, we were already in that space anyway, so we were using it for our mobile app, and yeah, it just that one naturally made sense for us to move absolutely everything into that.
And it's quite a lot of changes because from like the system to manage images, from the CMS, you basically change everything.
Yep.
What were the expectations on your internal resources? So how much implementation time it will take? Like what were you sourcing for that properly?
Yeah, so I think for like internal teams, the biggest issue that we had with the vendor before was just our time to market. And the big expectation from them was this just needs to be seamless and it needs to be fast. So it used to take us anywhere in the region of 24 hours to approve an image and get it onto the front of our site to be able to sell a product. And that's just not sustainable at all. And that's something that we've completely eradicated. It's literally milliseconds now. So yeah, for internal teams, that was kind of the expectation. And then for technology, the expectation really was to make our site faster. So yeah, through doing all them rigorous tests, we knew we could cut so much fat.
Mm-hmm. And moving from your like tech point when you were doing the implementation, so you did everything with your internal resources, or how did you approach that?
Yeah, so everything's internal. At Rapha, because we're moving from the Monolith, which is a Java backend, my job is to basically take our Java developers on a journey and turn them into TypeScript developers. So we're upskilling everybody. Well, maybe not upskilling, but we're changing the tact for them anyway. And yeah, we use our internal resource to basically design the whole thing from start to finish.
Mm-hmm. All right, so okay, the decision was made, you had resources for that, you upskilled people in order to be able to actually implement it. How about non-technical users? How are they dealing with this change? Because it's a lot of changes in one go.
To be honest, for the two teams that use it day to day, it's again night and day for them. So before in our old DAM, they were unable to find anything. There was little to no structure around our assets at all. Naming conventions, there wasn't any. There wasn't really any way to find anything. So we make a lot of content. Our content's there to drive our customers to basically get on a bike and inspire them. Mm-hmm. So we do go back into the archives and try find these inspirational images from like events that we run, yeah, so on and so forth. And we just couldn't find them. So for our brand and our content team, yeah, they can literally find anything at the drop of a hat now. Mm-hmm. And as for the merchandising teams, you know, we've put a lot of power in their hands with things like automatic metadata generation, automatically tagging things, like doing all the quality analysis and everything, so they know that images are appropriate for our customers. And it's just something that they never had before.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you moved from nothing to basically having at least something. You're on a journey, yeah. Maybe not there yet completely, not using all the capabilities of Cloudinary. We'll mention some of them, which Rapha is using. But first of all, we'll look at it from the Cloudinary API perspective. So when we did this extensive proof of concept, you were basically testing different settings, different quality settings, making sure that the assets are as high quality as possible, while being as low as possible, which is usually the tricky part to find the right balance for you. So how did you approach that, and how were you checking all the changes that were happening?
Lots and lots of testing, really. We did, to be honest, we did most of it through the proof of concept, really. We picked our highest grossing products and we tested them over a month period to see how them pages behaved and if we had any drop-off or anything like that. And we just didn't see anything. If anything, we saw more engagement.
Mm-hmm. And when we, I think we even have the set of transformations on the slide which you are using. So you are using basically DPR 2.0, which is like a device pixel ratio. Yeah. And what that does is that it's making the assets really high quality, so it means you have a lot of pixels. Yep. But we also know that from the performance perspective, it's not the most effective way. So how did you find the right balance for you from that perspective? Like, was somebody who created, who did the photo shoot really checking if they look exactly the same as they would like them to look on the website?
Yeah, so our photography teams do that. And I guess one thing that we did do a lot of checking is what our customers were interacting with our site with. So the top 10 devices, they're all mobile. And to be honest, we only use DPR 2.0 because it's our best guess. On a lot of the micro front ends that we build, so we basically don't have a monolithic front end. We've got lots of little experiences that we tie together and drop into old and new stacks. We do quite a lot of clever things around there, around like pixel matching and doing like server rendered images and blur hashing. So yeah, on them stacks, it's perfect. It works great. But for the ones that we can't completely update, 2 works really well for us.
And when you are making these tests, usually what we see that e-commerce teams are pushing to have it as low as possible, while the design teams and photography teams want to make it as high quality as possible. Have you had this kind of battle?
No, we never really had a battle. Everybody at Rapha cares about the product. We care about the website. So they were really good in just taking recommendations, really. So it was pretty much like a chat like this in front of everybody.
Yeah, and from what we can see on the slides is also that you are using automatic format, automatic quality.
Yeah.
So all your originals are usually uploaded to Cloudinary as JPEGs. Do you do any pre-processing, or do you upload even PNGs? What is usually the process?
So our photography teams, they make everything JPEG. They get it down to a reasonable size. And to be honest, what we upload into Cloudinary is pretty close to, well, it's not a raw image, but they're very high quality. I think one thing that we've got now with a format auto, which we just never had that before with our previous DAM, so we can deliver the best format depending on the browser.
Yeah, so just for those who are not very familiar, format automatic basically means that we will make a decision based on the browser of your end users, which is the best suitable format for them to be delivered, and quality will also compress the quality, but with a definitely we are looking at the visual quality. We won't go down with the quality compared to what was the original. So yeah. I think that's the result on the Rapha website. And I know that it's not fully on all types of websites. So currently you are live on product listing pages, right? Yeah. And those are serving quite well at the moment. All right, so from a Cloudinary assets perspective, or digital asset management perspective, you already mentioned that you had some users who basically couldn't find assets because that was the stage before. And when they moved to Cloudinary, what I saw in your digital asset management that you are having quite a lot of metadata, which didn't exist. You had to somehow generate them. So can you talk us through the process, how you generated metadata?
Yeah, so we imposed naming conventions, and they really depend on the type of image. So it's not always just product images. We've got a big asset library of like events because we run so many events. I think we run probably, over 1,000 maybe a week. And that's like live events like this, as well as rides and talks. So we've got a lot of imagery like that. So yeah, we basically enforced these naming conventions. The teams were really good about taking them on. And through that, we use the upload presets to basically extract everything that we need. So it could be product-based SKU, the variant color, what season that it's from, because we also kind of regenerate some of our products over the seasons, because they can be like bestsellers for us. And then we basically just use that to be able to search and be able to enrich all of our other systems. Okay, so now people are actually able to find those assets. And what you mentioned is that at the beginning, this was mainly like a technical project. So basically you as technical lead, where master admin, maybe you had 1 or 2 other master admins. So all these people from Rapha who started using this system were coming on board as different roles of users. So you were creating media library users who don't have as many rights as master admins, of course. So what was the approach there when you were making decisions about who has access where? How are you going to structure that for those users? Yeah, so we basically have a folder structure depending on teams or types of images, and then we use user groups on top of that. So most people are just media library users. We assign them to a group, that group gets access to a folder. Because what we saw in our last dam is, because there was no structure, people could go in, rename things, it'd go off the site, it'd break. There was no kind of like notification system for us as well. So it was a manual process of going around and fixing things. So now we have that governance, it just doesn't happen at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and when you mentioned the folders, so folders are basically folders as you know them from the computer. On top of that, you are also using collections, and collections, that's something what we call a virtual folder, so you can group assets together without a need of moving them from their original folder. Yeah. So how are you using these, and what are the processes that are done by this?
So we use them basically to sign off full variants or color variants. We also we create clothing for lots of different types of cycling. So there's road cycling, mountain biking, just commuting as well. And the different teams that are responsible for them need to have that kind of sign-off. So they create collections, they get sent around them teams, they sign them off. And then we basically go through a mass approval, and they make their way through our middleware and fan out basically to every system that needs them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, quite a lot of processes going on around that. Yeah. Except for different folders, permissions, collections, you are also using multiple product environments. Yeah. So there is not just the one environment where everything is stored, you have multiple of them. So what was the approach there?
So I guess there was a few different approaches. We originally thought about using environments for basically to divide our dam up by team. But because it was a technical project, we basically use our other environment to do the testing. Mm-hmm. So it's really crucial for us when we approve or change metadata that it's reflected everywhere. So we use that as a kind of staging environment really. So if we need to make changes, if we introduce another bit of composable or another service that needs to feed off our assets, we can do it in that enclosed environment.
Mm-hmm. So you are not mixing your non-technical users with your technical experiments.
No, they don't know about that one. That's just mine. My playground.
Your own playground, okay. Yeah. So all right, so it's great to hear that these users who were not able to find assets and it was kind of a mess before and anyone could do anything, or actually got something structured where they can navigate themselves. Yeah. What is feedback from them? Because I know that you kind of created uses for them and let them use it. Do you hear any feedback? Are they reaching out back to you to extend the functionality to maybe connect it with more systems and so on? How does this work?
To be honest, when we first went live with the project, they were so happy that it actually worked that we haven't really had any feedback in terms of we need to extend it because it just does so much more than what they had before. So yeah, it's been plain sailing really.
Yeah, that's great. Like it's amazing when expectations are low. You can only exceed the expectations in that case. So thanks for joining our customer base. We talk about Contentful. So you mentioned that you use Contentful for the application, but now you are using it for the whole website, right, as a CMS?
Yeah, so we use it, we basically have multiple spaces that we split by domain. So we've got spaces for product, and we use Contentful as our PIM. A lot of people don't agree with that, but I think it's a good idea. We have a space for content, and it's the same kind of thing, only content can author inside there. And we've got a space for our RCC team, which is primarily used by our mobile application. And we do quite a lot of nice kind of multi-space cross-referencing of data there. So Cloudinary-is hooked up to our product space, and we automatically feed all of our assets into there on SKU creation, so there's no manual process anymore, which is great because it used to be a nightmare. And now we can cross-reference that into content, and then our content can cross-reference into our mobile application. So you'll see if you're part of the RCC, which is our cycling club, there's content on there which also features on our website, but it's rendered completely different, but the model is the same. The content just, renders slightly different.
And I'm sure there is at least one person in this room who will agree with the statement that Contentful can be used as a PIM as well. It's Charlie from Contentful, who will join us later for a discussion. With regards to Contentful and Cloudinary, we have the connector because we have a team taking care of technology partnerships. It means that they are making sure that all the new systems that are trendy right now have connected to Cloudinary. So basically, in the Contentful environment, users can access Cloudinary environment. It's done through Media Library widget, and it's not interrupting any flow on their side, right? If they are using Contentful, they get to Cloudinary, select an asset, insert it, right? Or how does it work?
It's completely seamless, to be honest. It's got the search as well. And to be honest, we use, for the spaces that don't have automatic generation of content, so our content spaces, that's where we use that kind of drop-in. And because of the naming conventions and the team that's doing it, they know exactly how to find things. So yeah, it's been great for them.
Right. So if we get to the outcomes, because I already asked you what were your expectations from the change when you were changing stuff from like different architecture to MACH, outcomes that came out of that were pretty impressive, I have to say. For the outcomes, when we look at that, so delivery work, 90% faster for images and 50% faster for videos. So was this more than you expected, less than you expected? What was, were you surprised by those numbers?
To be honest, I knew that they'd be really good. I didn't know they'd be that good. And I think when we talked to the rest of the business about the transformation we're going through, we kind of played it down purposefully because, you know, you say that you deliver less but give them more and everyone's happy. Yeah. But yeah, they're incredible, their numbers really.
Yeah, so I like it. So what we mentioned here is also like usage of format automatic. So there are some reports like Core Web Vitals and so on. So they will give you very hard time if you are not using all those capabilities. And maybe when we look more closer into the Core Web Vitals and analysis there, so you basically, let me read it from there because this is very tiny. And visually complete metric was improved by 50%. And largest Contentful paint is 20% faster. So it has massive impact on Core Web Vitals, as well as you mentioned, the content sizes went from average 2 megabytes to 500 kilobytes, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so all these changes, like what was the impact you have seen then with regards to, I don't know, people spending time on the website? What was the result of these outcomes? So
there's a lot less drop-off. So we're still, like I said, we're still on this journey. We haven't moved absolutely everything over to our new stack. So for the things that we have moved over, yeah, we just don't see people dropping off because the page is a culmination of everything together. It's just incredible, really. So it's, yeah, Cloudinary, Contentful, and then our front-end stack, which is completely decoupled. The new framework is, yeah, it's just blown the numbers out of the water. Mm-hmm. So I think, yeah, we've kind of seen an average of 70% improvement across absolutely every metric for everything that we've migrated. Mm-hmm. We're planning to move our product pages this year, and they average around 9 seconds to load. We'll drop that down to 2.7 seconds. We've got a magic number, which is basically 1.5 million per second. Mm-hmm. So we expect to see about an uplift in 9 million.
Okay, so 9 million per year in revenue from doing these changes. Just
from migrating, yeah. And that's without us doing anything like multivariant testing on components, without doing that journey, just from moving from one to the other.
Mm-hmm. So that's quite a significant increase in revenue, which is coming out of these changes, which you have seen. So even when we try to predict these changes on Cloudinary side, we always try to be very conservative and really below. So I'm very glad that it's actually, those are quite interesting numbers. And when it comes to return of investment, so you did quite a lot of investments together. So you had to make purchase of those technologies. You have to invest time in getting it implemented. So when you compare how much the previous architecture was costing the business and how much it costs right now, what is the comparison there?
We don't have an exact percentage, but by going composable, actually everything's cheaper for us. So in terms of running costs, yeah, everything's cheaper. I guess the return of investment for a developer it's quite, I think, hard thing to measure. But for everybody, we're not on this awful stack that takes 2 weeks to deliver the smallest thing. So, yeah, it's a hard one to answer, but I think there's good return of investment everywhere.
And when you look at the maintenance cost? I'm sorry, I work in sales, so I'm just all about the numbers and costs.
For which system though? Just for Cloudinary?
Yeah, when you take all of them, because like all these systems together, they require some maintenance. You had to put effort into connecting them. So maintaining that, making sure you're supporting all the use cases.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really seen a massive impact on maintenance, really. We haven't really seen anything go down. We've just seen our processes like skyrocket and just become easy. Yeah, so maybe in a year's time when we've connected more things, I might give you a different answer, but right now it's pretty good.
Okay, so hopefully we'll have this user summit again. We'll call you again to update your numbers, just in case they change over time. So yeah, those are really impressive results, and hopefully we'll see more of these results with different customers, because we have customers here who are using us for many years, and we have customers who are maybe using us for only a short time or not using us at all, because we are still in the process of implementation. So I would like to thank John for his participation in this discussion.